with Councilman at Large, Larry Slago.
The work sessions have been recorded. I won't have to respond to this because people can go and look at the work session. But the anonymous blogger on the cesspool that I keep talking about mentioned a couple things. First of all, I don't know that the statute that I finally had given to Mary Beth to do ever mentioned the city of Brunswick. I mean, I keep looking and I don't see it anywhere. But first of all, when I sent this stuff to everyone, I think I gave Brunswick, Marietta, Troy, and another city for people to consider. I mean, so to mock a person for doing their due diligence and going to other places to get it, and then to misconstrue what occurred in this chamber is just entirely unfair, and why that anyone looking at that site should just be scratching their head and getting some medication, unless they're just doing it for entertainment value. Secondly, if they read that, I'm not going to be ever suggest. I've never called the mayor of this city a liar in this forum. It just didn't happen. I don't know what they're talking about. I wouldn't do it unless forced to do so. So I just want to have that stand corrected. Now, in discussing this situation, though, I think a couple things did arise out of that discussion, which is very concerning. I'm not a very good politician. I'm a very good lawyer, and I'm trained to look at a problem, address that problem, and see what the best way to react and deal with that problem is. Now, why so much criticism has come over a suggestion that I think is a very reasonable one for dealing with the situation in Parks and Rec, Department is just totally unknown to me, but it's more a political attack than looking at it from a reasonable basis. But when you look at the Parks and Rec Department, the 6 years I've been here, under the previous administration, Mr. Ciccinelli was always constantly being accused of having more control over the Park and Rec director than I believe he probably had. Under the current administration, what the mayor frankly said was that people that she was unaware of were manipulating the Park and Rec board to select the director of their own choosing and drive Mr. Kaminsky out of the city of Massillon, because that's precisely what that meeting I discussed was about. And that kind of political thing shouldn't go on, because unlike every other department in this city, the Park and Rec department is unique. Because number one, not only is it taking in a significant amount of taxpayer dollars, but it's also expected to operate as a business on at least two levels, that being the rec center and the Legends of Massillon. Now, I've been on record saying that if I had been a councilman, I don't believe I would have ever voted for the city having a rec center, nor do I believe I would have ever voted for the city having a golf course, because I don't particularly think those are functions the city should be in. But we have to address the problem that we're left with, not what we should have had. So when you look at those two functioning entities, the rec center and the Legends, the one thing that's clearly obvious over the past 4 years, you have to count the time for 3 years, is that the lack of continuity in the directorship, in my opinion. First, Mr. Kaminsky was leaving. There's no doubt in my mind that when Mayor Ciccinelli was defeated in the primary, that Mr. Kaminsky felt that his days were numbered. He was hopeful, I'm sure, that he could stay, but he certainly had to feel his days were numbered. Then the selection of Mr. Strawn, which was done by the rec board, but certainly there was a great deal of influence being placed on that board by, if it wasn't the administration, it was certainly members, a member of her administration and those aligned with her administration. And then Mr. Strawn's leaving so that Mr. Nist took his place. And in dealing with a business entity, and this may be the strongest argument for a charter government I could ever see, is if you're going to run that business, you better have somebody with business management skills operating that on a continuous basis. Since we don't have a charter government, and thus the executive that would handle it, then I feel, and I still feel this way, that the best way to do that is to take as much of the politics out of it as you can, and I still believe that's by having this entity in the end make the final determination on that, because it has to influence 9 people, not just 1.